Hello everyone, my name's Anayah, Joy Holily. I am so privileged and blessed to be here today, and I actually really mean that. They're not just words for me, and I know they're not just words for you guys either. Being in a group like this, in a space like this, that is so heart-centred and so focused on sharing, is such a powerful and amazing experience for us all, because this is what we're creating in the world at large. We're creating in ourselves and we're taking it out in the world as well. So my message is clear. You matter in the world, and so do I. Learning to support ourselves through the words we speak is for me, one of the most important and vital roles that I've come here to experience and share. When I was a little girl, I must have been about 5, I was in school and my father was the railway station master, so crossing the railway line was forbidden. It was very dangerous. But I had a feeling I had to go home, and I had to go now. So I left school without telling anyone, and I went home and I saw my dad, and he was standing in the middle of the room, and my mum was sitting on the couch looking really helpless, and Dad had a small bag. I said, "Where are you going, Dad?" And Mum said, "Daddy just has to go away for a couple of days." I was petrified because I thought if he goes, he'll never come back. Looking back now as an adult, I realised he probably had a break. They were probably fighting or something. But as a young child, I was absolutely beside myself with fear. So I promised, "Please, Dad, please, please, please stay. We'll be the happiest family. I'll be the best little girl. It'll be wonderful. It'll be the best thing that, we could ever experience." And so Mum and Dad looked at each other, and of course Dad didn't go anywhere. And so from that moment on, I felt completely responsible for my parents' marriage, for the stability in the home. I mean, please don't let the baby cry. What do I do? How do I stop the baby? So I took all of this in. I took it all in. And it seemed the harder I tried, the more I panicked. And the more I panicked, the harder I tried. I began to feel like I was completely wrong, completely broken, completely unlovable, and a total failure. And I took this into my life as an adult, and I became my harshest critic. If words were whips, honestly, and I think a lot of people probably know what that feels like. It's very, very damaging. So I became my biggest enemy, and I hurt myself over and over again with words, with relationships, with behaviours, with thoughts. I was very cruel to myself. And I hid behind comedy. I got fatter and fatter because no one sees the fat girl. I married and had relationships with men who I thought I could save. I could see their innate goodness. And if I loved them enough and tried hard enough, I could save them and fix them, and they could fix me. I just wanted to be good enough. I desperately wanted to be good enough. And if I was good enough, of course, they would never leave me. Never. And I could keep my family together. So I was married 3 times. I didn't keep any of my families together, as it turns out. But the most important family I did keep together, and that was the family of love in my family. That was what I learned, how to keep together and how to grow and nourish and expand, and it's so amazing. Okay, over time, I became very bitter, oh my gosh, and so angry and so toxic that no one could stand to be near me, and I couldn't stand to be near myself either. I was so toxic. But you know how life has this way of lifting you up and supporting you, even when you think it's pushing you down and hurting you. Of course, that's what happened to me. And I realised that everything that I had learned, all these skills that I had learned that were punishing skills, if I was going to have that different kind of life, if I was going to be the sort of person that I loved to be with and enjoyed my own company and therefore was able to bring that out to others, I had to learn something that I didn't even know if it was possible. I had to learn to love me exactly the way I was, without changing one single thing about myself. Wow. Wow. Okay, so I heard something on Doreen Virtue's chakra clearing CD one day, and that is, I am willing to release that part of me which angers me when I think of you. So I started doing this and saying it out loud, singing it, screaming it, begging it, over and over, 200-300 times a day to start with. Something had happened that, on the surface, I looked totally justified in being really upset about. But of course, justification's just another word for, well, you know, I can do this because it's somebody else's fault. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I really wanted to have a different kind of life. And you know what? I really wanted to. My kids really loved me. I knew that. But I wanted to be the kind of person who could be the kind of parent that could model a life worth living in joy and harmony and blessings for my children. I really wanted that badly. So I decided that's what I was going to do. It was early days and I really had a long way to go, I can tell you. I had a lot to learn about myself, and I decided that it was worth the journey, it was worth the time, it was worth any pain that I would feel, because I started to realise, oh my gosh, I started to laugh again, I started to stop obsessing. And it was such a shock to experience that of course I knew I was on the right path. So, yay, I'm in. Okay. I'm totally going off on my notes here, so I don't know what I'm up to next. Okay, and the other thing I realised, right, you know what I mean? The other thing I realised is I couldn't give what I didn't have. I just couldn't do it. So I had to start giving it to me. I had to start building up my own banks of emotional support, love, kindness. Kindness was the biggest thing for me. And remembering how important it is to know that I matter. I just do. Not because of any other reason. I just do. So learning to open myself up was a very scary experience for me. I'd spent so many years keeping myself shut down and emotionally aloof or completely overwhelmed in emotion. And I would go from one to the other and get so panicked in between, so that when I was in one, I'd think, oh, it's okay now. And then that wouldn't work, so I'd run to the other. And it was just so frightening to be there. And it got to a point in my early 20s where I knew if I didn't do something, I was never going to survive. So I did something. The universe presented an opportunity. I took it. I moved into it. And I started to face, I went and did primal therapy of all things, way back in the 70s. But what it did was it allowed me to really see where my pain was and to not have to explain it to anybody else and just begin to love myself around that pain and just be okay with it. It sounds like a small thing, but it was a very big thing. And I realised too that putting everybody else's needs before my own was never going to take me where I needed to go. So I started following my guidance. I created Angel Heart Radio. First of all, I created Angel Light 777. It was beautiful to work with the angels, that loving, guiding presence. And so my message is clear, is that You matter in the world, and so do I. And no one can do what we can do in the ways that we've come to do it. Thank you.